Hi, my name is Lee. The purpose of this document is to test the level of interest in the Kenites, the Rechabites, and Jethro. If there is some interest, I would love to work on a proper book or books on this subject. Whether I commit to working on such a project is dependent on feedback or lack thereof. My hope is that someone will contact me if and when they are able to finish this. What I'm going to be doing here is going through this document, which is 350 pages. There's really just too much data to include. So this document represents a small percentage of the data collected. I'm just going to scroll through it and make videos that are kind of short and break it up that way so it's easier to digest. All screenshots of text are from safaria.org and or chabad.org. All sources are from those two sites. I took screenshots of their sources but did not always include them here for the sake of space and because this really began as a promo for testing interest for a book, and it evolved into this rather large document. And I can send screenshots of any sources, or I can tell you how to look them up. It's very easy on both sites. The website I use for the gematria and word search is from thetrugmans.com. And feel free to comment or criticize or ask questions. You can send them to JethroAndTheKenites at gmail.com. So let's begin. This video will be just a brief introduction of the Kenites and some notable events. Some of you may have heard of these guys already. And then we will lead into their role in certain messianic prophecies. So here are the cainites. And we'll end with the prayer of Jabez and how the Kenites are connected to that and how that is also a messianic prophecy that goes back to them. Notable Kenites: Jethro, of course, the main one, father-in-law of Moses, chief of Midian. He was also a trader. Father of the B'nai Cain, which is the children of Cain, which is one of his names, and they are the cainites. Cain. He has 7 daughters and 7 names, and there they are, Cain being one of them. Ruel, Hobab, Heber, Yeter, and Putiel. And some people say that everybody that goes by this name is Jethro, and some people say sometimes it's him and sometimes it's one of his descendants. He had knowledge of all the different religions and idols, eventually turned to the knowledge of one God, and he's famous for advising Moses. But he's also in a lot of different other places, just not by name necessarily, as we'll see. Thereupon, here's a quote. Thereupon Jethro said, "Blessed is the Lord who has rescued you from the hands of the Egyptians and from the hand of Pharaoh, who has rescued the people from beneath the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all the deities, for with the thing that they plotted, he came upon them." He's talking about Egypt. Then Moses' father-in-law Jethro sacrificed burnt offerings and peace offerings to God, and Aaron and all the elders of Israel came to dine with Moses' father-in-law before God. There's a lot going on here. I'll just say, try to think about when are the times that blessed is the Lord comes up, because it comes up more than a few other places. And also try to think about now I know. Where else was that used? Now I know. And as we'll see, the elders, the word for elders is related to the word for cainite. And we'll see that the elders are always associated with the cainites, as we'll see. Moses' father-in-law said to him, "The thing that you are doing is not good. You will surely wear yourself out, both you and these people who are with you, for the matter is too heavy for you. You cannot do it alone. Now listen to me. I will advise you, and may the Lord be with you. You represent the people before God, and you shall bring the matters to God." So here we see clearly in Exodus 18, he's advising Moses. Zipporah is Jethro's daughter, wife of Moses, performed the circumcision on their son Gershom. Her name is related to the word bird. So Zipporah took a sharp stone and severed her son's foreskin and cast it to his feet. And she said, "For you are a bridegroom of blood to me." So he released him. Then she said, "A bridegroom of blood concerning the circumcision." So Zipporah is the one who performed the circumcision on their son. It's possible, and we'll see elsewhere where there's hints of this, that the Kenites, we'll see that they were hanging around with Abraham, who's famous for having the covenant of the circumcision. Likely she had knowledge of this, and the Kenites and the priestly families might have been practicing circumcision already. And then we have the unnamed mother of Pinchas or Phinehas, wife of Eleazar, daughter of Putiel, who's Jethro. Eleazar the son of Aaron, took himself one of the daughters of Putiel to himself as a wife, and she bore him Phinehas or Pinchas. These are the heads of the fathers' houses of the Levites according to their families. Okay, and then we have Heber the Cainite. He's the only person explicitly and clearly referred to as the Cainite. So it always says Heber the Cainite. Now Heber the Cainite had separated from the Kenites, which it actually says in the Hebrew it says he had separated from Cain. Of the children of Hobab, which we saw earlier was one of Jethro's names, the father-in-law of Moses, and he pitched his tent as far as Elon Bazan Nanim, which is by Kadesh. So that's Judges 4:11. And then we have Yael, wife of Heber the Cainite, who killed Sisera famously when she drove the tent peg through his head. Sisera being the army general whose army was famous for having great armored chariots. And she's connected to Meroz in some way. So we see this is about Yael. Blessed above women shall Yael, the wife of Heber the Cainite, be. Above women in the tent shall she be blessed. And that's Judges 5:24. Above women in the tent. referring to Sarah, of whom it is said in Genesis 18:9, she is in the tent. Rebekah, of whom it is said, and Isaac brought her into the tent, and Rachel and Leah, of whom it is said, and he went to Leah's tent. So above these women in the tent shall she be blessed, referring to Yael, because they bore and raised children. But if not Yael, this evil one, Sisera, would have come and destroyed them. So it states in Genesis Rabbah 48. Another interpretation is that Yael also dwelt in tents. Therefore, she was mentioned in the blessing of the tents, and that's Rashi. And then we have the Kenites in 1 Chronicles, and the family of scholars or scribes, those who dwelt with Jabez, they are the house of the Kenites, who were descended from Hamath, the father of the house of Rechab. And we'll see that this is an extremely interesting verse by the end of these videos. But here we have the connection in plain text. The Kenites dwelt with Jabez. Jabez is famous nowadays for the Prayer of Jabez, which is a book written by Bruce Wilkinson. Sold about 1 billion copies or something. But the Kenites are never mentioned. He does mention, however, that Jabez is a Kenites. And we'll see how these two groups, the Kenites and the cainites, are connected. And you saw there the house of Rechab. That refers to the Rechabites. Rechabites are related to the children of Cain. They are the current day Druze people. The Druze, and they have their own covenant with God. And it says in that covenant that there will always be Rechabites. So let's have a look at that. The Druze, by the way, do claim to be descendant from Jethro. And we'll see there's a lot of interesting relationships there that are pretty unlikely and intriguing. And to the house of the Rechabites, Jeremiah said, So said the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, because you have obeyed the commandment of Jonadab, your father, and you have kept all his commandments and have done according to all that he commanded you. Therefore, so said the Lord of hosts, God of Israel, there shall not be cut off from Jonadab, the son of Rechab, a man standing before me for all times. So he's created a covenant with the Rechabites. And it has to do with the fact that they kept all the commandments that were commanded to them, which were the 7 laws of Noah, plus they had a prohibition against living in cities and drinking wine, and they held up to this. They took on these laws and always obeyed them, and didn't have to be told 1,000 times. Therefore, God gives them favor. Key moments with the Kenites. We have the prophecy of Balaam. When he saw the cainite, which is referring to Jethro, he took up his parable and said, How firm is your dwelling place, and your nest is set in a cliff? For if Cain is laid to waste, how far will Assyria take you captive? And you can see in the Hebrew, Balaam is making a play on words with the words for nest and cainite and cain as well. Because the word for nest is ken. And he also made a play on words with cain, which is he's referring to a place there. But you can see he's clearly making a play on words and being kind of sarcastic. When he saw the Kenite, he took up his parable and said, "How firm is your dwelling place, and your nest is set in a cliff?" And here's Rashi. He saw the Kenite and said, "Since the Kenites were encamped near Amalek, as it is said, Saul said to the Cainite in 1 Samuel 15:6, well, he mentions him after Amalek. He perceived the greatness of the sons of Jethro, also known as cainite, of whom it is said," and it goes back to 1 Chronicles 2:55, which we saw there, the scribes that dwelt with Jabez, and it goes on to explain the names, other names that are used. And it says, so called because they heard the shofar blast on Mount Sinai, because they would cry out and be answered, because they dwelled at the entrance to the gates of Jerusalem, so called because they obeyed their father's commands to abstain from drinking wine and to live in tents, so called because they did not anoint themselves with oil, and because they dwelt in booths. "How firm is your dwelling place?" Bilam asked Jethro, who is cainite. "I wonder how you merited this. Were you not with me in the counsel we gave Pharaoh, which was, 'Come, let us deal wisely with them'?" Exodus 1, verse 10. The famous meeting where he and Job and Bilam were asked how to deal with these Hebrews, and Jethro didn't go along with it, stayed silent. "Yet now you have settled yourself in the firmness and strength of Israel." And in the next verse, Bilam connects Cainite with Cain, as we saw. "For if Cain is laid waste, fortunate are you that you have settled in this stronghold, for you will never be banished from the world. Even if you are destined to be exiled with the 10 tribes and be eliminated from the place where you had settled, what of it? How far will Assyria take you captive? How far will he exile you? Perhaps as far as Halah or Habor. That is not considered being banished from the world, but being moved from one place to another, and you shall return with the other exiles." Interesting. Gemara comments, and this is why, alright, so let's see. 3 were associates in that council, the one that we were talking about earlier, how to deal with the Hebrews, newborn males, and they are Bilam, Job, and Jethro. Bilam, who advised to drown the newborn males, was killed. Job, who was silent and was reluctant to express his opinion, was sentenced to suffer afflictions. And Yitro, who fled after he disagreed with that council, and Pharaoh sought to kill him. His descendants were privileged to sit as scribes in session with the Sanhedrin in the chamber of hewn stone, as it is stated, and it goes back to that verse 255 again. So we see here that Jethro's descendants were scholars and scribes and held a place in the Sanhedrin. High honor for non-Jews. And it is written there with regard to the identity of the Kenites. "And the children of the Kenite, Moses' father-in-law, went up from the city of the palm trees." It is stated with regard to Bilam, "And he looked at the Cainite, and he took up his parable and said," And Bilam said to Yitro, "Cainite, were you not in Egypt with us in that council to drown the newborn males of Israel? Who placed you alongside the mighty of the world?" So he's making he's making kind of a sideways remark to Jethro. And then we have Samuel warning the Cainites, and in Samuel we have Saul warning the Cainites. Let me just change that. "Turn away and go down from among the Amalekites, lest I destroy you with them. And you did kindness with the children of Israel when they went up from out of Egypt, and the Cainites turned away from amidst Amalek. So they were given a warning so they would not be destroyed. And it says, to the Cainites, the descendants of Jethro who were residing in the wilderness of Judea and in the south of Arad, who went to Jabez, the place, there it's a place, not the name of the person, to learn Torah. Arad being Amalek. The Canaanite king of Arad was Amalek, for it is stated the dweller of the south, and Amalek dwells in the southland. So again, there we see the Kenites are associated with Jabez. And they learned Torah and practiced 7 laws publicly. With all the children of Israel, for Moses, Aaron, and the elders of Israel partook of Jethro's repast. Scripture therefore considers it as though he had done kindness with all the children of Israel. And then we see the first time the term ha-caini, the cainite, shows up in the Tanakh is Genesis 15:19. And here's 18. On that day, the Lord formed a covenant with Avram, saying, to your seed I have given this land from the river of Egypt until the great river, the Euphrates River. And the Kenites, the Kenites, and the Kadmonites. So here's another connection in verse 15:19. The Kenites and the Cainites. Again, Jabez and the Cainites. We know that Jabez was a Kenites. He's mentioned in Bruce Wilkinson's book as a Kenites, and you can easily find that if Google. It's even in his Wikipedia page, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Interestingly, you can make out of the word Kenites, you can make the word for elder. And then we have the Kadmonites here. Almost nothing is known of them, but there is some on the cainites and Kenites. We'll get into the Kadmonites by the end here. The point is, the cainites and the Kenites are related. And we've shown multiple points. Okay, here's a very small sample of what the sages have said about those groups, the Cainites, the Kenites, and the Kadmonites. There's quite a lot even in English. It is referring to Messianic times, where the lands of these 3, the nations I just mentioned, the Cainites, Kenites, and Kadmonites, will be included in the expanded borders of Israel in those days, and they will be the place of the 3 future cities of refuge. If you'd like to learn more about this, visit Sefaria or Chabad and type in Kadmonite in the search. Since it has the least entries of the 3, you'll be able to find it quicker. Lest the avenger of the blood pursue the slayer, therefore I tell you to prepare the way for you and to prepare many cities of refuge. And if the Lord thy God enlarge thy territory, as he hath sworn unto thy fathers, to give thee lands of the Cainite, Kenites, and Kadmonite. So we see in Messianic times, the borders of Israel will be expanded, and these lands will be the future lands of the future cities of refuge. So there will be 9 in total, as you'll see. Then thou shalt add 3 cities more for thee, 3 more cities of refuge. Thus you have 9 altogether, the 3 on the east side of the Jordan, the 3 on the land of Canaan, and 3 more in the future to come when God will enlarge thy territory or expand your borders. Now remember this for the next video. We'll come back to it, but remember the expanded borders, and then think of the connection to Cainites and Kenites and Jabez. And the Art Scroll Stone Edition Chumash has the following note on 15:19. But the land of the first three, the Kenites, Kenizzites, and Kadmonites, would belong to Edom, Moab, and Ammon. Keep those in mind as we go further as well. Those territories will not belong to Israel until Messianic times. Okay. So we're talking Messianic times and Messianic prophecies here. And then it has another note in the Tanakh. Or it has another note. It says, see Isaiah 11:14. Isaiah 11 is pretty well known as a Messianic prophecy chapter. Below with some, and here it is below with some related terms that are related to the Cainites. And it even has it kind of hinted at in the Hebrew. From Hamath. There's one I hadn't noticed before. Okay. And then we see in there canute, like canute. And he shall raise a banner to the nations, and he shall gather the lost of Israel and the scattered ones of Judah, and he shall gather from the four corners of the earth. And the envy of Ephraim shall cease, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, nor shall Judah vex Ephraim. Ephraim, we'll see. Some of you may already know the significance of that. We'll get into it later. But then you see the envy or jealousy, cannot. It's which is interesting because Cain, his sin was a sin of the spirit of jealousy. And we'll get more into this concept and the laws of jealousies later, and all the related terms that have something to do with the Cainites hinted in the Hebrew, but also backed up by the sources. So we know that the Cainite, you can find this in the sources anywhere. The Cainites are associated with Edom, Moab, and the children of Ammon, and we'll show even more of that later on. Okay, and this is where we're getting into how the whole thing ties into each other. All of these messianic prophecies. We saw how Jabez is connected to the Cainites, and the Cainites are through the Kenizzites, and how they're mentioned side by side in that verse where those lands will be part of Israel in messianic days and will be host to the 3 future cities of refuge. I'm going to stop this video here. Next video, we're going to get into the prayer of Jabez and how it all ties together.